Hey everyone, what's going on? It's your favorite DEI hire. And today I wanted to talk about in light of the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Um Interestingly enough, not a piece of disability text, but something which I think is closely related to it, which is the concept of double consciousness, most finely articulated by the Black American sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois. And yes, it is Du Bois. That's how he pronounced it. I know French people will be like, it's Dubois or whatever, but I'm just going by how the man himself pronounced it. And yeah, his book, The Souls of Black Folk, and the first essay in particular, of our spiritual strivings. And I think that as a text, what it comes down to put it succinctly, is to see and be seen in this world. Um, and I mean that in a more metaphorical and broad way, not literally seeing and being seen. I mean it more in the sense of being and having been in this world. Um, and to begin with, he talks about like the first time he knew he was different than the other white kids, because he grew up, um you know the descendant of a free family in an integrated neighborhood, one of the few black kids, and so his entire school was integrated. And he says that, at some point the boys and girls decided that they were gonna buy postcards for each other. And you know he went to give it to a girl that had just joined their class recently, a white girl, a tall white girl. And she refused his card. All of the other students didn't, but she did. And uh he says that she didn't even say anything. He just looked at him with a glance. And I mean, what can I say? I can relate. Um, although I always felt that people treated me differently, with pity and with kind of like what he says, like a half contempt that really underlies the fact that people consider you a problem, a strange curiosity. And you know um I've talked here about, like, for example, my friend that I went out for coffee with. It was the first time we were meeting each other, and like, before I could even say anything, or just as I was greeting her, her face turned from joy to like a sort of like sad face, and I'll never forget it. I've talked about this in my On Being Ugly video, but those are the types of events that remind you that you're different, that you are a problem. And it's just um It really is an indescribable feeling. And you know, you do start to notice the veil put in front of you and the world and the vast chasm. So instead, you look up to the skies, you initially become very hateful towards the group doing this to you, and eventually, especially in my case as well, because I was smart, I eventually distinguished myself academically. And everyone, but still everyone knew me as that smart wheelchair kid. And you know in addition to the fact that, I mean, I am a mixed race person. Both my parents are mixed race people because I'm a Latino. It's just that my mom can pass for Eastern European. People always ask her if she's Ukrainian, but my dad is like, he looks kind of like more like your standard Latino, or at least what Americans would think that is, right? He's brown, he's got an afro, and people kind of think he's racially ambiguous. Some people think he's indigenous, other people think he's black, and he's kind of like neither one nor, it's more like he's all of those, literally. And like, I couldn't help the fact that I came out looking like my mom, so I passed. But obviously, genetically, I'm all sorts of things. um, and that adds on to the double consciousness. It's not double consciousness anymore. It's multiple consciousnesses. And people see you the way they want to see you. They see you as a problem because you don't fit in to their neat little boxes and stuff like that. And it's gonna kind of sound like a weird analogy, but it's kind of like pizza, right? You get cut up every which way, and people take the pieces of you that most conform to what they want to see in you, right? But of course, everyone knows that the whole pizza was always there to begin with. Um, and but again, you look towards the sky. You want to be whole, but yet you're not. You're a disabled Latino American struggling against all the prejudices that comes with. The prejudices that people put upon you once they see your chair, or once they meet your dad and they say, "Oh, that's your dad? How come you look like that?" And then they meet my mom and they're like, "Oh, but that's so weird." People used to think that I was adopted, bro. Cause just because my dad was dark and my mom was light skinned and I came out light skinned, bro. Like, and yes, you distinguish yourself academically or whatever, but there's always that grain of like, I don't want to necessarily call it imposter syndrome, but it's definitely like Well, who are you? What are you in this world? Um and I'm still figuring that out, just like every other human being. But I do think that, speaking as this person that I am, split between so many pieces, so many veils, so many intersections, hint hint, wink wink, if you will. One thing remains the same. I am human, and you know, I've always been kind of like W.E.B. DuBois, uppity, in the sense that, like, even though I've struggled with being beat down and told that I was worthless or that I wouldn't amount to much, um, I always knew in my heart, because I had the support of not only the law through things like the ADA or IDEA in terms of education, but also individuals that looked out for me, like the people that taught me to be uppity and to demand higher things for myself, um, were my therapists, my physical and occupational therapists, all women who, you know, really put that spiritual independence in me. Now, while I've rebelled against it, and I think that, a lot of my Latino values have come back to me, that the spirit of Latino interdependence, which I think, for as many problems as blacks and Latinos have had in these seemingly disunited states, that's one thing that binds us. Like, we really care about family. Like, we look out for our people. But still, as again DuBois said, I don't wanna take away the good things from America, and I don't want America to take the good things away from me and my culture. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. But one thing I do want to talk about is that, while of course laws can't really change personal opinions that much, I do still think the law exists in two senses. It, of course, exists by the letter, literally what the law says, like you have to provide reasonable accommodations for the disabled, um, or something like that, right? But what the spirit of the law is really saying, and it sort of is ironic that I have to explain this to a supposedly Christian nation, because don't they have a guy that taught them about the difference between the letter and the spirit of the Torah? Like, I mean, he did kind of copy Hillel, let's be honest. But yeah, anyway, um, it's not just about giving giving disabled people access to places and giving them an education, guys. It's about what that represents. It represents our integration and the acknowledgement that we deserve to be in a community and that we deserve the book learning as well as the life learning um of everyone else, and that we deserve to be acknowledged as the complex humans that we are, with all our faults and with all our joys and advantages and the good things about us. See, but that's the problem with the veil. That's the problem with the pizza cutter with the slices, because you know you you don't get that by virtue of prejudice. Um and I wish more people understood this. I wish more people could see that of course the law is not enough, but it does exist in these two spaces. Um and I might sound kind of Thomistic to you, because Thomistic philosophers are the most annoying in the world, but like, I really do think it's true. Think of the difference between the natural law and the divine law. Um and honestly, I think in this world, that's one of the most important things about legislation. Of course, there's still so much work to be done because people don't realize this, because people don't want to see uh the smart Gabe. They don't want to see the caring Gabe. They don't want to see the vain Gabe. They don't want to see the oftentimes stubborn Gabe in all the complexity that he requires. All they want to do is pity him, and all they want to do is, put him into little boxes and alienate him from everyone else, and especially his community. But that's the thing. I'm not the only one. And as I've said many times before, um like, guys, we need to move beyond what the United States has sold us in terms of, like, we need to be like this, the able bodied, and we need to find some sort of reconciliation with them beyond, you know, common courtesy. I really don't believe that. I'm sorry, like, um, although I respect people like Ed Roberts and Judy Human and stuff like that, we need to move beyond them and, seek more of, like, quite honestly, a Black Panther style, um, reformation of society and stuff like that, where yes, like the Black Panthers, they worked with all tons of other groups that weren't about just black people, but they still kept it in their minds, their mission. No, instead, as I've said before many times on this channel, we're chasing after able-bodied ideals and values. And like I said, the dominant culture will always influence you to some extent, but we just want to be um cripples peacefully, respectfully. But again, society doesn't like cripples that question that. They don't like smart cripples. They don't like critical cripples that will say no to that, will say no to their being integrated into a burning building. And we've seen the fragility of the law. For as much praise as I've just given it, a lot of it, especially the education side of the law for us, is being torn away. The sort of compromising kumbaya sort of era is over. It's clearly over. And all I want to say to people struggling with their multiple consciousnesses, their intersections, is that the only way that's gonna change is if you look beyond what they set out for you, beyond their visions of what your community should be. And that goes for everyone, especially those that were economically disadvantaged or like had a a problem with status, like my own family, or poor whites, poor blacks, poor whatever. um it doesn't matter, guys. And don't be afraid to see and be seen, but just make sure it's by your terms and in your terms, for the good of everyone and for your community as well. All right, see you guys. Bye.